So there must be a group of folks out there that needs this. Otherwise, I would not feel led to make this episode right now. So before I begin the message I feel led to share, I just want to pray over the folks who are going through this time right now and ask and lift you up. Father in heaven, I lift this group of people up to you who are entering their season of healing, who are entering their season of spiritual awakening and growth. And I pray over them, Lord. I pray protection over them, guidance, and that you would lead them through this process under grace in perfect ways. So I felt led this morning to share a little bit briefly about what you might expect as you move through the process of inner healing and spiritual awakening. In my experience, they went hand in hand. And I wanted to share what I have learned and the phases that stand out to me looking back, having come out of this process, but at least the intensive part of this process. So it began for me with the question that I had started to realize there was a pattern with regard to relationships, particularly relationships with men in my life, but also close friendships where they always ended in betrayal of some sort, where the person that I loved betrayed me or abandoned me or something like that. So, after a lifetime of experiencing this, the most recent heartbreak I had experienced was about 6 years ago or so. And, it was in trying to recover from that and trying to heal from that I finally stopped asking, why does this always happen to me, to what is it inside of me that is attracting this type of situation? Because I had reached a point where I realized, and this was because I was also early on in my spiritual journey and learning about some things and reading some things that led me to ask this question of why, not why, but what is it inside of me that's attracting this? Because I started to understand that everything in our reality, everything that we experience, from relationships to money to careers, everything is a reflection of our inner world. It's a reflection of our dominant thought paradigm and the belief system that we see the world through. And all of it is a belief system. It may not feel like that at this point if you're really early on in this, but that's what it is. And so when you can start to do that, you can start to embrace and be open to the idea that you've created everything in your reality, whether you realize it or not, based on how you perceive things, based on what you've come to believe about what's true for you, what you deserve, what you're worthy of or unworthy of, and all of that. So I think the first thing really is this sort of level of surrender, this willingness to put your ego aside, the willingness to avoid or protect the victim idea that, this is always happening to me and people are bad and they do things to me. You have to let that go first and reach this state of being open to understanding. And I was at that place where I just wanted to know the truth. I wanted to know what was going on inside of me that was leading to this, because I finally reached a point where I wanted it to change and I didn't care what the truth was. I just wanted to know. So that's really kind of the first step. That's when you can really be open to receiving and understanding and seeing and gaining all this awareness. So that initiates your healing phase. When you go through that first question, you identify those first questions, whatever it may be for you. Then you can start the process of digging into what is your dominant thought paradigm constructed on. So this is where you start to look at, why did I come to start believing this? Why did I come to believe that I deserved a certain type of relationship, or that every relationship would always end a certain way for me, or that I can never reach a certain level of financial success, or I can never reach a certain level of career success, or whatever it is, right? You start to look at those questions, and then you start to think back and you try to go back in your mind and your memory to the earliest point in your life when you can remember starting to adopt these beliefs that you are starting to realize are creating your reality. So, like, money is a good one because a lot of us have similar issues around money and limiting beliefs around money. So that's one thing you can start with, is maybe looking at, like, what was I hearing around money growing up? The same thing with friendships and relationships. What were your early friendships like? Were you the one that was putting in a lot of the effort to initiate the friendship? Was it the other way around? How did those end? What stories did you start telling yourself based on those experiences? Because over time, that starts to become the lens through which you see everything and what you start to expect on a deep subconscious level. And that is therefore what you start to attract to yourself. So you go through this process for some time. In my case, it was about 1 to 2 years, I would say. There was the 1 year phase that was very intensive, where you're going through every single thing and you're identifying your triggers, and you're identifying all the things that you realize are these signals from your mind and from your body that are trying to bring your attention to something for you to overcome, for you to release. And you'll notice that you have the same patterns repeat throughout your life over and over and over again until you finally respond to it differently. And this process is really helping you start to do that. So as you go through this process of all these past memories and everything, then you can start to you get awareness, first of all, and then you can start to change the story. You can start to decide that you want to believe something else now. You can start to realize, I never had to believe that. It was never true that I was worthy only of these shitty relationships where I get cheated on, or I get stabbed in the back by someone that's supposed to be my best friend, or whatever it is, right? You start to realize that because that stemmed from something someone in your life told you when you were young. Maybe it was a parent, or maybe it was something you saw that you translated into this story. So then you can start to see the lies for what they are, and then you can start to decide what you really want. What do you choose? I want true friendship. I want true love. I want to be loved and accepted by people in my life the way that God loves and accepts me. And I want to love and accept myself that way, and all of that. So you start to move through that process, and it's very cyclical. It's very much layered. And there will be times where you feel like you're repeating lessons. There will be times where you're like, I thought I already worked through this. Why am I going through this again? And it's because these things are very layered, and they can be very deeply ingrained in your subconscious, in your mind. Especially the older you are. I think, like, there's very much a connection with age, right? Like, if you've lived longer before you start doing this work, it might take you more time to move through this because you've had more years or decades behind you of living by these beliefs and whatnot. And so there's more to unpack, and there's more to work through. And you can't rush this part of the process. And I think the reason for that I've come to realize is because it takes time for you to process the emotions and do the forgiveness work and the healing work related to each of these different stories or memories that will come up for you. Some of these will be things you have no recollection of until you start doing this work, and until you've been doing the work for a while. Others will come up more immediately. So I think the reason for, you have to move through it piece by piece and bit by bit, because it takes time for your mind to process what you're realizing. It takes time for you to sit with the emotions and allow yourself to feel those things that you've spent years avoiding, or you've spent years suppressing because it was too painful. And then you need to give yourself time to forgive yourself for believing that story, for adopting those beliefs, but also for the people involved who made you feel a certain way, or who created that trauma or that experience for you. And it's very important to give yourself the space and the time and the grace to do that. Because until you truly forgive all parties, including yourself, and release those emotions and allow yourself to sit with them, like you will just keep repeating, and you can't really move forward. So that's another thing. And it's important to keep in mind that by forgiving, you're not excusing or giving those people a pass. You are setting yourself free of the chains and the weight of that pain and that emotion, because holding on to it only hurts you. So you move through this piece for a while, and then you'll experience a variety of things. One of those being a dark night of the soul, where you feel like God's left you. You feel like it's really quiet on a spiritual sense. You feel like you're in this dark space, and you don't know what's going on. You're not sure. You feel very alone. You feel very lost. And you'll move in and out of that from time to time. I went through a few myself earlier in my process. And then you will also experience ego death. And this is very important. It's the process of you letting go of the things that you hold on to make yourself feel better or have peace or whatever about certain things. This is the kind of the part of moving through realizing the things that you hold on to out of your ego, what you had been believing or holding on to uphold a certain image that really only serves your survival as a being in the world, right? And not from a place of understanding that you are a part of God, having an experience in a unique human body. And so it's important to allow the ego to die, and it won't die completely because you do need it to have, to exist in this world. It's necessary to survive and operate and function in the world. But part of what I think the Bible has always been telling us is that we're not of this world, we're in it, and not to be of this world, but to be in it. And that is the part where it's important to allow the ego to die so that you can start to understand that you are a spirit. You are a fractal of God in a human body, and you need that human body to live and exist in the world. But it is not who you are. And so everything that's attached to that ego, you start to allow to die. You start to allow to let go. And this is important so that you can start to step into the identity of who you truly are, that spiritual being, that soul that's having an experience and using this physical avatar to have the experience in the world. So that process is very important, and it's very difficult, and it can be a challenge to navigate, but it's part of it. And then you go through what I call the void. And this is like, if you think of it like a gestational period, how when you're pregnant, or when a woman is pregnant and the baby takes 9 months to grow in the womb before before the baby can be birthed into the world. It's a similar thing on a spiritual level. You go through this phase where you are like the caterpillar in the cocoon, where your body, the caterpillar completely turns into mush, and then it starts to reform itself into the butterfly inside of the cocoon, and all of that has to happen before the butterfly can emerge from the cocoon. It's the same kind of thing. So in my case, that process was about a year or so, maybe a little bit longer. I still feel like I'm coming out of that right now. And so that can also be a challenging time because you're no longer the version of you that started this journey in the beginning with the healing and the shadow work and the ego death and all of those things. But you're also not yet you don't really know who this new version of you is yet. You don't know how to operate and move around in the world as this new version of you that you have been making room for. Because I would say you're not quite that person yet. So then, after you go through all of this, you spend this time in the void as this new version of you is rebuilt. As your reality, you have to think about the fact that this is the time where God is building this new reality for you, where your outer world is starting to shift and change and adjust to this new version of you that is about to be born. And so that takes time. So you have to give yourself the time for that. And as a side note, this is one of the things that I have found so frustrating about the manifestation and the spiritual, quote, gurus out there that are really selling people on the whole manifestation thing, because it gets people hyper-focused on manifesting, and then they get frustrated because they can't figure out why none of their stuff is coming in. Why is nothing happening that I've been trying to manifest? Well, a lot of it is because this inner work hasn't taken place yet, or it's not complete. And you're not, and that takes time, and reality needs time to catch up with all of that work and all of that effort. So it's really important to, I believe, in hindsight, having come through this, focus on this more intensive inner work first. Yes, you can identify things you want and like what you want to have and how you want your life to look, but it's very important not to get attached to or tangled up in when is it going to arrive and how is it going to show up and all that stuff, because the more important thing for you at this point in time is to move through all of these phases and move through this process. And allow yourself the space and the time to heal, because you have to understand that you're going to start to learn through this process that everything that you've been told, everything you thought you knew about the world is a lie. And it's all conditioning, whether it's from your parents, whether it's from society, whether it's from all these other things. So all of that starts to break down and crumble, and then it's a matter of rebuilding the new. And then once you've moved through that last phase of the void, you start to emerge into this new reality, into the new version of yourself. And so then you're spending this time getting to know who that is and what that means and how you move through the world. And your outer reality is still not yet reflecting all of these other changes, but it's starting to. All of those things are starting to unfold. All of that stuff is starting to catch up with you. And so this is a time where you find yourself in this great state of peace. You find yourself just content and grateful. And there's this inner quiet and calm that I can't put into words that you start to experience when you get to this point, because all of that other noise has finally been removed, and you start to realize that there's this deeper understanding and connectedness to everything that enables you to fully surrender your need or attachment for all these other things, whether it's financial things or material things or status or whatever. You no longer care about any of that, and that gives you a great amount of peace. So that is what I felt led to share today. I really hope that this helps and blesses those of you who needed this, who are embarking on this journey. And feel free to reach out to me or leave comments and questions, and I'd be happy to, share more information as that might be helpful for you.